Hello, it's Lion here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing another comic book review. We're going to be looking at Dead Lucky, which is part of the Massiverse, and it's technically the third Massiverse story, I think. The first one being Radiant Black, which I've reviewed volume 1 of. The second one being Rogue Sun, which is one I haven't reviewed yet because the first story arc hasn't finished. But I think it finished this week, so I will have a review for that out at some point. But today we're going to be looking at Dead Lucky, which is, I think, the third story in this set. They don't really have to be, like, read in any order, but they kind of, like, tie into certain events in certain ways. So you might want to kind of figure out some of the reading order to an extent, but they're not really designed to be, like, sequential, right? So, yeah. Let me show you what they look like first, and then we'll talk book facts, and then we'll get into the review. So we have issue number 1. Really nice. I like this one a lot. Issue number 2. Again, really nice one. And I really like that all of these actually kind of match what happens in the book, which is really, really nice. Here we have issue number 3. Issue number 4. Issue number 5, which is kind of a boring cover in my opinion. And then finally, issue number 6, which concludes the first story arc. And there was sort of a break for a while where Dead Lucky stuff didn't come out, but it is going to start coming out again here soon, so there you go. Now, Dead Lucky is written by Melissa Flores, who I think also does a lot of work with the MMPR stuff, the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger stuff, over at Boom/IDW, you know, wherever they publish it. And the art is done by French Carlo Magno. And then Mattia Iacono and Becca Carey help with the coloring and the lettering, which all is really, really nice here. So, yeah, the publisher is Image, as you guys can see in the back of all of these books. And the demographic, according to Image themselves, is Teen Plus, which I'm guessing is 16 and over, because otherwise I don't really see what Teen Plus would mean. And its genres are sci-fi, superhero, and I guess there's a certain element of like cyberpunk, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the most accurate way of presenting the story, because I'm not really sure what it means to be cyberpunk, right? When I think of cyberpunk, I think of like something like Blade Runner, right? But the cyberpunk video game isn't really like that, so I'm not really sure what constitutes cyberpunk, but it does have that kind of like aesthetic, or things that kind of fit into both Blade Runner and the cyberpunk video game. So it's kind of there for you to decide, I guess, but it is definitely sci-fi superhero based. So there you go. Adaptations wise, it does not have one, but honestly, Radiant Black and all of the Massiverse stuff being like a bunch of different shows that then join up for a movie would be awesome to see. And I think Amazon would be pretty good for this, because they do have the Invincible and the Vox Machina side of things covered, right? So those two things with like a more Power Rangers type story would be really, really cool to see. So I would really like to see an adaptation of this, but it's probably unlikely to happen, right? So yeah, the premise for this story is basically there's this woman. She's the main character. Her name is Bibi, with a B, not with a V. And she is half Chinese, half Hispanic, I think. She lives in San Francisco. And she was a soldier in this kind of like Desert Storm kind of vibe. It doesn't really tell you when things are happening, but it's a bit more futuristic. So it wouldn't really be like any specific war. But she was a soldier. She was the captain of this platoon, I guess, or this group, this squad. And they all die. She has survivor's guilt. And she comes home. And she ends up having superpowers for some reason. And now she has this ability to control electrical appliances to an extent. And she also sees the electrical impulses that the people she knew had. So she basically sees ghosts. And she can use these ghosts to power electrical things. And I think that's a really awesome power set. I really like it, right? So she comes back home. She realizes that things are very different from how they used to, and that her town, San Francisco, has basically been taken over by a mega corporation that is trying to kind of privatize the whole thing, and it's affecting the citizens, right? So through a convoluted process, she kind of ends up going to war with this mega corporation. And I think it's really, really cool. I really enjoyed this story. It could have been better in some parts, but overall, I think it was enjoyable. So, yeah, plotline-wise, we get introduced to the Dead Lucky Ghost very easily. But then we kind of go back and start with BB at therapy. And then we get to see some Morrow workers. Morrow is the company that's trying to take over the San Francisco area. And we also get to meet BB's family. And BB meets with this guy called Eddie, who is her ex-boyfriend / best friend / the man in the chair for her superhero persona, right? So they get together, they meet. We are introduced to Ghost, which is her main mech. And then we kind of get an explanation about her powers. And then we see this Salvation Gang attack, kind of like a terrorist type of attack. And Dead Lucky, or, BB, steps in with Ghost, and they try to stop it. And then something happens at the end of the first issue that gets her suit, which looks really, really cool, right? So I quite enjoyed this. Then we move on to the next issue, where we get a lot of backstory on the characters. We get another really cool fight with the Salvation Gang, and then we get to see that Morrow is kind of upset that, this other person in this mechanized kind of suit manages to step in, and somehow they're well-liked over the company, which I think is kind of a standard thing. And it also works to kind of show that Morrow isn't really in it for helping people. They're really in it for the PR of it all. And it's not working, so they're upset, right? So they decide to manufacture an incident where VB will turn out to be the bad guy, basically. Doesn't really work, though. And then we get to see BB, Eddie, and then this other person who was a cop called Garcia all meet up, right? And it's basically like BB would be Batman, Eddie is, Alfred, and then Garcia would be like Commissioner Gordon, right? Like that kind of relationship there, to an extent, right? Like that's kind of the style. And then we move on to the next one, to the next issue, where Morrow attacks, right? And they kind of play it off as some sort of malfunction, I think. I don't really remember how it goes, but they attack the city. BB shows up, and then BB's parents' place, this kind of little restaurant, gets blown up, and her mother makes it out alive, but her dad is still stuck inside. So BB goes in there, and she saves him, but then she needs a power up, so she gets this kind of like ability to fly so that she can get her dad out. And it's really interesting how all of her powers kind of manifest in times of need, so I really enjoy that. I think it's cool. And she manages to save her dad, but she ends up having a PTSD type of attack that gives us a little bit more information about her. She gets her power up. We realize that Morrow is bad, although we kind of have already known this. And then BB goes off and tries to commune with her powers to try to understand what's going on. And she kind of gets to have a conversation with her dead platoon members, and she kind of understands herself and her powers a little bit more because of that. And I think we learn a little bit about them too. But we don't really know the whole, thing, so that's kind of exciting. There's still stuff to figure out, which I really enjoy. Then Morrow institutes this kind of manhunt thing. We get this more backstory, and then BB teams up with the Salvation Gang in order to try to take down Morrow. And we get introduced to this character called Shift. And if I remember correctly, Shift was actually introduced in his own kind of little mini-series with the Image anthology series of comic books that they released last year to celebrate, I think, 50 years, like 25 years of Image or something like that. I don't really remember, but I remember not reading them because by the time I figured out that there was this anthology series, it was already too late. Like, it had already moved on from all of the issues that covered Shift, and I didn't really want to track them down, right? So I really hope that at some point Shift's story gets published in some other way somewhere else, because I would really like that, right? But he gets introduced, and he joins with BB and the Salvation Gang, and then as they're kind of planning to do what they're gonna do, there's a night before the battle, right? And so there's emotional stuff. Eddie goes to his wife, or to his girlfriend, I guess. BB and Garcia kind of have like a couple moment where they kind of realize they like each other, and they have like a fade to black type scene. And then we come back, and basically the Salvation Gang has been surprise attacked by Maru, because the guy that's in charge, Gust, I think, actually sold out his team to Maru, and so there's this big battle. It's very cool, very interesting. I really enjoy Swift's mercs. I really like how they work. And then he decides to leave because he's like, I didn't sign up for this. See you later. It's understandable for a mercenary, but like, he's so cool. I really wish that he had stayed and fought with Vivi. But he's probably going to be like this kind of anti-hero character that we kind of call in every once in a while. And I quite like that. And so eventually Vivi's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to beat these guys, but we can kind of figure out a way to deal with it, right? So she kind of parlays with the guy in charge of Maru. I think his name was Mori, something like that. I don't really remember. But they parlay, and then there's this kind of time skip that allows us to know that Vivi is going to team up with Maru, but it's all just a ploy in order to infiltrate the company and destroy it from within. And I really like that. I think that's a really good setup. In terms of characters here, we get Vivi, Eddie, Georgia, and Garcia, and they're really the only important characters. Everyone else is only important for the issue that they're in, and it doesn't really matter all that much if we don't really know their names, so, it is what it is. So Vivi has a whole bunch of people associated with her, like Ghost, Tank, and some other ones, and they're all basically like her squad members, and they're called by their nicknames, and they also kind of correlate to a specific type of mech, right? So it's kind of important for you to know them, but ultimately she's basically just yelling out attack names for all intended purpose, right? So, yeah. Other than that, there really isn't too much going on for the characters. In terms of world building, it's kind of a semi-futuristic San Francisco. Bibi was this soldier in this kind of Desert Storm-esque type thing. And then she got electrical powers, although we don't really know exactly how she got them. I think it was her last mission, kind of ended up in this kind of situation where she got shocked by electricity, and this kind of was weird and interesting. It kind of has like a little Flash vibe to it, but I'm not really sure how it works. And Maru is basically if Tesla and Amazon were one company and they decided to make like Boston Dynamics type stuff. So it's kind of that sort of thing. It's a big, massive mega corporation type situation. And we also know that there's some extra superpowers and superpowered individuals somewhere else. I think they mentioned Chicago, which I think is a reference to Radiant Black, but I'm not really sure. It might be a reference to Shift or Swift or whatever the mercenary dude's name is. Because Rogue Sun happens in New Orleans, and I guess Radiant Black does happen in Chicago, but I'm not really sure. I don't really remember. So overall, it's not very super world built, but there is enough there that it kind of is interesting, because it just has to be enough for you to think San Francisco, but also be able to kind of set it apart from the real one, and I think that works. In terms of art and fan service, the artwork is kind of hit or miss for me. Mostly, I think Bibi's face looks like she's a 50-year-old woman when she's supposed to be like this 30-year-old person, right? So I understand that there's a certain level of like hurt or kind of sadness that is supposed to be implied in Bibi's character in her face, but it doesn't really work. It doesn't feel like hurt or sadness or guilt. It feels more like age, and it doesn't work for me. Her face isn't really like fitting for the character that she's supposed to be, right? So I don't really like that, but everyone else is fine. Everyone else's faces are okay. Not my favorite art style, but they look okay. And the mech design and the colors for everything are really, really good though. So I really enjoy that aspect of the story, of the artwork and the way that it's done. Like, I really like the mech design and I really like the colors, but the people don't really look the best, in my opinion. And there is no actual fan service or like sexual content. It's mostly just fade to black or imply that it happened at some point. So pretty good there. I mean, it doesn't really matter for me. Either way, I'm okay with it. But if it's a sticking point for certain people, this doesn't really have anything too egregious in it. So yeah, ratings-wise, it's a 4 out of 5. And I'm really happy that I read all of it in one go. Because while I was reading it individually, I was enjoying it, but I was also not really able to connect the dots between the story points. And so it was kind of difficult, and it made me kind of feel like I liked it less than I really do. So I'm really happy that I read this, because I was thinking of dropping the story, but after reading all of this in one go and kind of binging it, and kind of being able to enjoy the story completely in one go made me realize that I really like this. I think it's probably my second favorite out of the Masterverse stuff. Okay, yeah, let me think. So Rogue Sun is number 1 because I really like the CW superhero aspect of it. Then it's probably Dead Lucky. Then Dragon Girl, or whatever it's called, Fire Girl. I don't remember what the series is called. And then at the end, Radiant Black. Because Radiant Black kind of felt really slow to me, at least the first volume. I don't know how it's going right now because I haven't really kept up with it, but I do want to collect it at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it. So I think that Radiant Black is probably at the bottom, and Rogue Sun is at the top, and Dead Lucky is probably second place. So definitely going to keep collecting this, and I'm really excited to do so. And yeah, so that's all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.